Hello and welcome to Just Onside. It's Sunday. It's a couple of days after Eid, so I certainly had a good time. OS, how about you? How was Eid in Abu Dhabi?
Yeah, quite a fair you. Was obviously planning to be away for a few days in Oman, but the flights got cancelled with the recent upheaval. So it was a Eid at home. But yeah, very quiet affair. Did a few things with the family, a few little excursions, but lovely just to spend it with family and what have you. How about yourself, Ayub? I imagine you stuffed your face, I imagine.
I did, yeah, but I was doing that in during the fasting as well. Not during the fasting, obviously in those windows when we had the opportunity to eat. But so it was the usual thing. It was family, but obviously it was the first one without my dear old ma. So it's
Yeah,
slightly
yeah.
sort of unusual, but a good day. It was good to catch up with family. Good to see the old man as well. He was in okay spirits, but
Yeah.
I think we all sort of there was a presence missed, but it is what it is. It is what it is. All right. Okay.
Just,
So let's
just on that though,
yeah, go on.
normally most Ramadans, I mean, I imagine you would break a few fasts perhaps at your mum and dad's place, or maybe go to see them on the weekend. What would that normally entail? Because I imagine you probably did spend a little bit of time with them during Ramadan, at least together.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it was. I mean, towards the last sort of few years, my mum obviously couldn't fast because of her health reasons. Sort of
Yeah,
dad in a similar situation, so they weren't sort of fasting, but it was always nice to sort of go there. And sometimes we would break the fast there. So even though whilst technically they weren't fasting, at least they'd feel part of it. So it was nice. It was always a nice opportunity to obviously get them involved because it's sometimes, especially with my mum, because she couldn't fast. She always sort of felt that she wasn't part of
yeah,
uh, the Ramadan as much as she wanted to be. But it's as I said, it was slightly sort of unusual because obviously, in a sense, all I've ever known on Eid day is to go to mum and dad's house. Sort of mum's there, dad's there. Obviously, there was a huge presence sort of missing,
mm,
but it's obviously something that I was aware of. I mean, it's not something which was something unexpected, but
yeah,
it. I suppose it's like with most things. Even if you're aware of something, maybe the
yeah.
first time is always slightly more difficult. But
Very
as I
much
said, I mean, overall the day was a good day.
good one.
Spent time with my own family, with in-laws as well. All sort of all good now, all good.
Fantastic.
Sort of result yesterday, sort of bit of a dampener, but we'll talk about that later. We'll start off though with it's going to be the first, I think, trophy of the season in England, and it's a cracking game, and it's one that I can't sort of wait to see because I think there's a lot riding on this. I think more for Man City than for Arsenal at this moment in time. But I'll let you sort of go ahead with it and give your thoughts, and then obviously I'll offer my thoughts afterwards. So I bet you're looking forward to it. The first trophy for Arsenal this season, I presume.
Very presumptuous, very on brand for you, Ayub. I must say. Yeah, I mean, for a second, actually, I thought the game behind your right shoulder, I think it is, was the Leeds game. I imagine you're not looking to switch off the game until you see Leeds score another Premier League goal, in which case you might be waiting for a while, actually. But I think it's
Right.
another
Well,
game, actually.
just before you, yeah, I mean, I'll explain why that's on behind me. It's all EFL games, so it's from the Championship. So what I'm doing is
Research.
I'm exactly. So there's a reason why I've got that on. So there's back-to-back Championship games, so I might as well just see the opposition now.
Yeah, 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 for
Get a
sure, for
heads
sure.
up.
We'll get into that later. Yeah, I mean, look, in terms of the game at Wembley this evening, and it is evening for us, so you that'll be 8:30 in the evening over here. Yeah, it is the first competition being laid out in terms of winners, and look, it's surprisingly the first time. I think you saw the statistic. Are you? First time in what 66 odd years, or what have you, that it's the top two in the league that are contesting the League Cup final. So that's pretty interesting. They are the two best teams in the league, in the country, obviously, and what have you. So it should be a fantastic game. The only bit I disagree with you is that I think it's a bigger game for Arsenal than it is for Man City. For Man City, they used to winning League Cups, that we used to winning FA Cups, Premier Leagues, and they've obviously won a Champions League in recent memory as well when they completed that historic treble. So from my perspective, given what Arsenal are chasing, what they have been chasing, and this journey that Mikel Arteta has been on, Ayub, ever since he came into the football club. Obviously, he won the FA Cup in that first year, where it was very much a case of just trying to get some key results and what have you. Now, it's a culmination of that 5-6 year journey, isn't it? Where this would be a kind of a telltale or some sort of validation, I guess, for that journey, what have you. And it promises, I say, has the potential to be a very special season for Arsenal. But I think from a desperation perspective, I think Arsenal's desperation should be more than City's. Now, you might argue, well, City are trying to salvage what they can from this season, but I'm not sure what one more League Cup trophy is going to do for Man City and Pep Guardiola, whereas I think it would mean quite a lot for Arsenal, not just the team, but the club in general, to be back winning trophies. So it's a huge game. It's a game between the two biggest teams. It's a game played between two coaches who are good friends. There was a bit of talk about the relationship that they have. Guardiola obviously spoke about how relationship has changed a little bit over the last 5-6 years, which is fair enough. They're not spending any real time together, but you can tell that they hold each other in a great deal of reverence. They don't really they've not really engaged in too many mind games between one another and what have you. There's a great deal of respect between the two teams. I just think that from an Arsenal perspective, they have to find a way to get over the line. Do I think it's fatal if they don't win it? No, of course not. It's a game of football. You're playing against an incredible opposition, a great coach, and it can go both ways. I think it's a difficult one to call anyway. I think for most people, I've seen a few predictions about it going to penalties and what have you. But I think from an Arsenal perspective, yeah, I think it's a big one. I think it's an important one. I think Jamie Carragher, I think, outlined it, and I think fairly well, that you can keep talking about quadruples, which I'm not a big fan of, or what have you, but ultimately, until you get your hands on some trophies or some pots, as you would say, it's not real, is it? And that feel-good feeling of going up those stairs, I don't know if you go up the stairs anymore, but that feeling of winning a trophy, the spirit, the positivity that it kind of reigns supreme across the whole club, heading into what's going to be a huge 2 months, Ayub. You can just imagine what it would do in terms of a certain burden being lifted, the club being revitalized, energized to take these last 2 months on, which are going to be highly pressurized, highly leveraged. To win a trophy would just set them off, wouldn't it? You've been in the right direction, just in terms of feel-good factor. So, yeah, look, it's a big game. I think it's a bigger game for Arsenal than it is for City, in my opinion. I don't think it's just my opinion, but I don't think the Man City fans on the whole would be as enthused, let's say, about winning this trophy compared to what Arsenal fans would be. And I think that's just pretty obvious. I don't think that's something groundbreaking or earth-shattering. So, yeah, listen, it's a huge game. Some big calls for Arsenal to make. Goalkeeper being one of them. It'll be very interesting to see how Arteta opts for that, especially, again, given that he's desperate to get his hands on this trophy. Does he opt for me, the best keeper in the country, or does he remain with Kepa, who's obviously played all the games? That'll be a big call for them. I think other than that, he's going to try and play, obviously, his best team to win the game of football, because that's what this game is, the single most important game of Arsenal's season so far. And obviously, it's an international break. We've seen what Thomas Tuchel's done with some of the players. I think Declan Rice, Bukayo Saka, amongst a few other players from other clubs, he's obviously allowed them to come a bit late. So the fact is, you put everything into this game to win a game of football. City will be smarting after the Real Madrid defeat, but it's a one-off game. You put your best foot forward. There's not much between the teams. I would say Arsenal perhaps a bit stronger defensively, City perhaps a bit more offensively minded, but I think in a one-off game, it's a very difficult one to call. So, yeah, it should be a good game. Arsenal, I imagine, will play like Arsenal do, very safe, very cautious, and see how the game develops from there. So, yeah, big game for Arsenal, and hopefully they can get over the line.
I mean, the reason why I sort of said it's a bigger game for Man City is historically, it probably wouldn't have been a massive game, the Carabao Cup. But the reason why is because I think the league's gone. Obviously, they're not in the Champions League. FA Cup, I presume they're still in the FA Cup, aren't they?
Yes,
Right.
Liverpool.
So, yeah. So that's the difference, because historically they'd be perhaps focusing more on the league and the Champions League, and it's an important one for Guardiola as well. By all expectations, I think this is the last season and maybe this is his final hurrah because there isn't anything else. Maybe there is a chance for the FA Cup, but even then, I think if they're playing Liverpool, you never know what was going to happen with that game. But this is probably his last realistic chance of having trophy wear, and maybe for him, it's much more significant, and that's the reason why I think perhaps it's much more important for Man City and especially for Guardiola because I think if he doesn't win anything this season, it's people have memories where it's the last thing that you've done that you
Mm.
tend to remember. So really, perhaps if he does beat Arsenal at Wembley, at least it's a memory that he can at least take with to sort of say, well, at least I did something right at the end as well. So I think it's extremely important. Uh, Arsenal are, I think. They're the favourites, without a shadow of a doubt. They're the favourites. The reason why they're top of the league. They're a difficult side to break down. I think City have to be on top of the game, and if that's um, and that's the problem. It's very difficult this season to sort of say how City are going to be playing because it's been so hit and miss for the caliber of players that they've still got. I mean, they're not the side of a few years ago, but they've still got very, very, very good players. But they need to be on top of the game, especially the offensive players, because I mean, if there's one side that you really need your offensive players to be on top of the game, it's against Arsenal. Arsenal, I think, are in supreme confidence. I think the last few weeks, when they've built a bit of a gap again against Man City, albeit it's based on Man City's poor form or poor results, but they'll be very, very confident. And I think they want trophies. Ultimately, a manager and a team is going to be judged historically by sort of the amount of trophies that they win. Now, if they'd won leagues and Champions League, maybe this wouldn't be important, but they
Yeah.
haven't. So this is why it's going to be extremely important. So it's very, very important for both clubs for different reasons. I hope it's a good game. I think it's going to be a tactical battle because I
Yeah.
think even this season, City are a little bit more pragmatic. Uh, Arsenal are always pragmatic. At the end of the day, that's
Yeah.
Arteta's sort of blueprint.
Yeah.
He's never going to go gung ho. So certainly from Arsenal's point of view, it will be probably will be tight. Set piece, we'll sneak a goal, we'll win the game. That's the mindset. Man City have to be on top of their game. If they're not, they're going to get beat. It's as simple as that. So looking forward to the game. I don't think it's going to be an exciting spectacle, but you've got the two best teams in England. So for that alone, and it's a testimony to the Carabao Cup because historically, as you know, teams never really paid too much attention to this cup. FA Cup, they still paid a little bit more attention, but the Carabao Cup, the League Cup, as it was formerly known, they never really bothered. But teams are bothering, and this is testimony to it that the best two teams in England are playing in the final. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm really, really excited. I hope, I mean, from my point of view, that Guardiola does win because I think this is the only thing he has a chance of winning this season. And I hope he sort of leaves on a sort of small high. It's not going to be a massive high, but at least a small high. So that's my take on it.
Yeah, interesting that you point that angle. And there is a school of thought that would think that if they win today, let's see how the other competitions develop. Because I still think there is, I think the Premier League is still there to play for. There's an avenue for them to get back into this. I mean, listen, they've got Arsenal to play. You'd be shaking your head. They've got Arsenal to play. They've got a game in hand. So there's still some room to make things uncomfortable for Arsenal, who have to play Newcastle, who have to go to Palace away and a few other games. So, look, what I would say is that there is a school of thought to your point that where, let's say, if they win today, he might feel somewhat re-energized to say, look, let me give it one more go, one more season to try and overcome whether he believes Arsenal are going to win the title, but to not shirk away from the challenge and to say, look, I want to leave a champion. I think we have it in us to be title winners. They'll probably be backed in the summer again, no doubt. So I wonder whether that's going to play any part if they do win today. Maybe if they do win the FA Cup, just to say, look, I think the team's still there. Just a little bit of fine tuning, or we can win the Premier League title. They're not a million miles away, are they? So, look, let's see how it goes. I think you're right. It's going to be a tactical game. I don't see things changing, even if there's an early goal. The only thing I would say is that sometimes these big affairs, neutral venues, big occasion, fans, all the rest of it. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a mistake. I remember the famous, it was an FA Cup at Man United against Man City when Guardiola and the keeper got into no type of mess and Garnacho scored its emptiness. There are things happen, it's a cup final. There's going to be a lot of nerves, especially on the Arsenal side. They're still a young team. They know what burden that they're carrying right now in terms of being, let's say, carrying that desperation of Arsenal fans to win a trophy. I think that weighs heavily. Declan Rice spoke about it in midweek, after the Champions League game, that, yeah, mentally it's very difficult. All of these games, some of them have played more minutes now, Ayub, in March than they did in the entirety of last season. And there's still huge games to play psychologically, physically, emotionally, and all the rest of it that comes with it. So, yeah, it's a big game for Arsenal. I wouldn't be surprised if they are incredibly cautious, incredibly safe and passive, and then, so to speak, let the game come to them. So let's see. Should be an interesting game. I think a
Yeah.
very engaging game because it's two coaches who are at the top of their game in terms of coaching pedigree and what have you. But yeah, fascinating game. But I think big ramifications, I would argue, on both sides in terms of both clubs.
I think you're right. It's going to be a war of attrition, but it's certainly going to be an interesting game. It may not be a spectacle, but certainly an interesting game. Right, we'll sort of move on to two coaches that we've sort of, well, I suppose one we've not talked about so much, but certainly there's another coach that we've talked about throughout the season, or at least a large part of the season, Arne Slot. Another disappointing performance. And then we'll also talk about Rosenior, who sort of started brightly, but last sort of couple of weeks, it's sort of fallen apart a little bit. But first, I want your take on Slot. I mean, it's obviously he's a manager is much vilified, especially with sort of Liverpool supporters, and we both know lots of Liverpool supporters. And I've got to sort of say that there's very few that I know, if any, who are supportive of Slot at this moment in time. I think they all want him gone. In fact, a lot. I was on various groups where a lot want him to go in this international break, because I think it's a club that has stagnated under Slot, and it's a slide that's not going to be arrested by Slot, and it looks like that. So, sort of give your take on Slot and also on Rosenior and what seems to be happening at Chelsea. Okay, so take it away.
Yeah, we'll cover Slot first, and then let's get your thoughts because I know you've got a bit of a soft spot for Liverpool as well. We watched the game yesterday. Obviously, they were always going to come through Galatasaray. I mean, there's for me a huge difference in Galatasaray's away form does not pull up any trees. I knew Liverpool would be very comfortable, and they were very, very comfortable in that game. Obviously, out of that game, they lost a couple of players, Alisson, Salah, and what have you, who won't be participating in the international break. And then a couple of minutes into the game, you lose Ekatike. Now, look, his squad is challenged right now. He's got a good squad, but you need that squad to be available. I don't think it's as easy for people to say, well, that's why you have a big squad, deal with it. No, come on, let's live in the real world. There's a reason why you have an Isak or why you have a Salah and Alisson, because they're top tier talent. Now, Salah's not been great this season, that's fine. But you're not just going to be able to say, right, well, if he's not there, we're going to have another world-class player in the wings. No squad really works like that to some extent. There's always some sort of drop-off because they are first-team players. There's a reason for they are first team players. So, look, what I would say is the sentiment. It was a poor performance. You see the statistics that I think put forward by TNT as well before the game. 26 of their 30 league games, they've been outrun by the opposition. And to be honest, you don't need the statistics. Your eyes. You and I have spoken about this. Your eyes will always tell you what's happening with a football team more than any statistic, any metric, and what have you. You'll see it if you watch the game carefully enough. You'll see it. Liverpool looked absolutely out on their feet. They were lucky to lose 2-1. To be honest with you, Brighton. There were times in the second half of you where Brighton, you could just tell, was more sprightly. Yes, they had the early kickoff on a Saturday, but I've just not got any time for those arguments. If you want to fight those particular battles, fight them in the close season. Get your club to petition carefully and do it collectively with the other football clubs, but you are where you are when it comes to March, slap bang in the middle of the season. Like that's already been determined. So I don't want to hear any of that. But what I would say is that they looked a tired outfit. Second half, there were so many times when they had the ball up, nobody's offering any angles, any options, and what have you. What I would say, though, is he absolutely did not help himself yesterday. First half, they were offensively playing quite well. I thought offensively, Brian had one or two situations that they scored from one of those. Big mistake from the goalkeeper, if you ask me, the way he passed it to Kanate, but still going to defend that situation much better. But Liverpool, I thought offensively looked sprightly, looked energized, and I thought they'll score second half. I thought they'll score if they keep playing like this. But he changed things up. Obviously, he moved Words a bit further forward. After a while, he took off Frimpong. Why he doesn't start Rio Engamoa, I just do not understand. He looks their most liveliest player. He did not start against Galatasaray. Yes, he started against Spurs, but he didn't start against Galatasaray. Your squad stretched. I mean, come on. I'm not saying and even if you say, okay, he's not ready to start, he's better when there's tired bodies out there and whatever, fine, but bring him on at half time. You can't bring him in the last 20 and just expect him to change things. And even though he always creates one or two opportunities, one or two situations because he's that good, I think that's a source of frustration, I think, for Liverpool fans. And look, what I would say, Yub, is my mind has shifted a little bit in terms of what Slot represents. I think it's disappointing. I don't think Liverpool fans or the club, they're very different to Chelsea, Ayub. Chelsea are a different animal altogether. It doesn't mean that you can justify one and not justify the other. What I would say is, I don't think they want to have a manager every 2 seasons, every season. I don't think they want to become that type of football club. I don't think they are that type of football club. But they're going through a few big changes. Klopp leaves, changes in the leadership. There's some talk about Richard Hughes going to Saudi as well. So there's a lot of moving parts right now. The big question that they have to ask themselves on an overarching level is Arne Slot the right guy to take us forward, not just for next season, but the years to come? Because there is an impending transition coming, Ayub, that they may not have foreseen. You see Van Dijk, he's dropped a level. Salah, he's definitely dropped 2 or 3 or 4 levels. And Danny Murphy summarized it exactly my thoughts. After winning the title last season, Ayub, you don't expect 8, 9 footballers to drop multiple levels in terms of productivity. You might think, okay, well, this guy might drop a level because of age, whatever it might be, or last year he was hitting some incredible standards like Salah was. Okay, he's not going to repeat that. But you don't expect collectively 9 first teamers all to drop a level or two. I mean, you're not going to be able to repeat the same level of success. And that's what's happened. If you go through the entire team, Ayub, Alisson, moving parts at fullback. Kanate's not been good enough. I would argue Van Dijk's not been that Van Dijk that we know and love. McAllister, how he's still starting, I cannot understand for the life of me. Gravenberg's dropped a few levels, although he's just signed a new contract. Wirtz hasn't hit the ground running. It looks tidy, but hasn't hit the ground running. Isak's been injured. Ekatike yesterday obviously came off injured. He's been a bit hit and miss, although on the whole he's been more positive. Salah's dropped 3, 4 levels. Gakpo's dropped 3, 4 levels. So I mean, how you've and you obviously sold Diaz, you've lost Jota. I mean, you're not going to succeed, are you? You're in the grand scheme of things. So he's not going to survive that level of downturn in contribution. I just think to myself, do they feel confident in his ability to turn things around? That's the only question. And it has to be more of a short-term and mid-term type question. If they don't, they've got to make the change. It's tough. It's disappointing for him. I think it's disappointing for Liverpool fans. They've got Alonso waiting in the wings. The reason why I think many are thinking right now is, to your point about international break, also Alonso's available. And also, I think Liverpool are the type of football club that could win the Champions League next season, that could win the Champions League perhaps the year after. It has happened for them. They've had these downturning years and then suddenly a resurgence if you get 2 or 3 things right. If that's the case, these next 7 games in the league are vital because they've got to try and get Champions League qualification. Right now, they don't look it. I mean, it doesn't look like anybody wants it. Maybe Everton might sneak it or Brentford or what have you. But right now, Liverpool are not playing well enough to gain Champions League qualification, and they need to stutter the Champions League qualification so that next season they can go again, hopefully a healthy Isak. They've got the centre-back coming in as well, fresh. There'll be hopefully less injuries. They'll buy 1 or 2 players. So, all of a sudden you can have a very different look to your outfit. So I think for me, it's critical these next 6 or 7 games, not because the general way of what we say, qualify for the Champions League, get some money. No. Liverpool are a club that can win the Champions League, in my opinion. So for me, it's critical that they get back into that competition. I think if you remember the season when Alisson scored that goal, I think they got to the final the year after. So it shows it can be done. This is a club with incredible caliber. I think they will move on from him, Ayub. I think they will move on from him. I'm going to finish off with one small thing. For me, he's hit his temperament over the last season and a half, for me, has been impeccable. I think he's made a lot of in-game adjustments last season, which got them crucial points, in my humble opinion. And I thought just press conferences, interviews, general commentary, not picking too many fights, came across, I thought, well balanced, I thought, for the most part. This season, I think he has dealt with many a situation with great resilience. I think I applauded him with the Salah situation, where he could have poured even more gasoline onto the situation. But I thought he nullified a lot of those things. You heard him speak at the press conference the other day about why he was so animated against Galatasaray. I don't know if you saw his theatrics on the sideline. And he said, look, we've tried to fight the good game. These players are rolling around 5 minutes, 10 minutes, half an hour. We've tried to do things the right way, move the game along, be quick, not engage in too many dark arts. And listen, we mourn and we complain to the fourth officials, but nothing's being done because the rules don't allow us. And now I've got no choice but to just start engaging in this type of theatrical. And you saw it very early on yesterday as well. I thought a couple of minutes in, he was very theatrical on the sidelines, and I'm okay with that. It's pressure. I get it. It's not going so well. I'm going to allow a little bit of grace. But it feels a bit out of character to me because I've seen what he was for a year and a half when things were going okay. So it just tells me that the pressure's cranking up. He gave quite a thoughtful press conference post game as well, where he said, "Look, I don't want to offer excuses," and he was right. He said, but he did outline some reasons why they've not been as good this year. I mean, in the last 10 years, this is the most amount of defeats that they've had in a Premier League campaign at 10, and the season's not done yet. So it's a very worrying sign for Liverpool Football Club. For me, they did not foresee the level of transition that they've got coming up, and I think they've got major surgery that they need. They need to ask themselves if they are comfortable going in with both these fullbacks, Kirkes and Frimpong, in terms as defensive fullbacks for a season. Kirkes has absolutely improved massively in the second half of the season. But the question remains on a more larger, can you succeed with having those two playing fullback in a Premier League season? That would be the question mark I would have. They need a dominant central midfielder, if not two, because they are way too soft in there. They are way too soft in there. And they need two wingers. So that's major surgery in terms of what's needed to come in and contribute to this team right from the off. We're not talking squad. We're talking about guys who can come in right now and start contributing straight away. So massive surgery needed. Don't know if they've got the stability in the senior management to make that happen. They've got question marks over the coach. I wouldn't be surprised, honestly, if he lost his job. If they play like this against PSG, then you can't see any chance that they get through PSG. So, yeah, Slot's in a world of trouble, Ayub. I know you've got a soft spot for Liverpool. I think you've got a soft spot for Slot in some respects, but I know you're quite tough on your managers. How do you see it? Do you think he survives the next 2 weeks?
Yeah, in terms of the soft spot for Slot, not really, no. I mean, I think he did really well. Obviously, he sort of won the league, so you've got to commend him on that. But I think, and I've thought about this because I thought, right, what makes a really good Liverpool manager? And I think you alluded to it in the initial part of your sort of comment, because I think Liverpool is a unique football club in England. It really is. I think it's not just a case of managing a football club. The city is unique. There is something. It's almost like an independent sort of city with a certain mindset, certain history, certain ideology. Yeah. And as a coach, you've got to embrace that. And I'm going to sort of talk slightly politics on that as well, because it's a very socialist sort of city. Klopp was a perfect sort of fit. He really embraced the culture, the lifestyle, in a sort of funny sort of way. Benitez as well, because Benitez still has a property in Merseyside. You've got to embrace the Liverpool ideology, the culture, and I think that's the first and foremost. Now, Slot, when you're winning things, maybe that's not something that's going to be focused on too much, but eventually I think that has to be something. I think, but by all accounts, I mean, I read a piece, I'm not sure if it's accurate, but his family is still in Holland. I think he himself is just sort of in Merseyside. So whether he's embraced everything about Liverpool, I'm not too sure. Now, the problem with that then is that it doesn't give you much wriggle room. If things aren't going too well, there are obviously opportunities for people to attack. And I think that's the key. I think it needs somebody with an affiliation or some sort of affinity to Liverpool, and somebody who's going to really embrace the city. And that's important. This is the key. I think with Liverpool, as opposed to any other football club, you have to embrace the city. You have to embrace what this city stands for, because and that's why I've got a really soft spot for Liverpool Football Club, because I like the principles that they stand for. They seem to be an independent city. They don't just go with the flow; they go with what they believe in. On the whole, similar to Celtic, I think there is something about Celtic fans as well. So Slot's in a whole heap of trouble. I think what's saving him at this moment in time is the fact they're still in the Champions League. If they've been knocked out of the Champions League, it would have been a no-brainer. I think it would have made an easy decision to make. that's the problem at the moment, because I think they're just thinking, well, look, he's he's done well in the Champions League. There is a possibility that he can somehow navigate this club, this squad of players, to win the Champions League. Now, it's a high. I mean, it doesn't seem very probable at the moment, and I think that's the problem. That's why maybe it's difficult to pull the trigger now. I think they might just sort of say, let's see the season out, let's see how it pans out. The problem then is, I mean, it's not a problem; it's probably a good problem to have. But if he does win the Champions League, what do you do? So it's a difficult situation this football club is in. I'd pull the trigger. I'd pull the trigger. I think he just is not a fit for Liverpool, the city, because I just don't think he's embraced himself into the culture of Liverpool. I think he's a little bit standoffish. I mean, you've obviously commented on the fact that he's come across really well, which he has done. I mean, I think there's a nice
Yeah.
demeanour. You're right. Last few weeks, and it happens when you're under pressure. I suppose the veneer of comfort and composure, it breaks, and
Yep.
that's exactly what's happened. But I just don't think he's a fit. I think there's enough quality in that squad. There is enough quality. I think there's been far too many poor performances, far
Yeah.
too many players not performing to the levels that we expect. Ultimately, there has to be somebody accountable. It's Slot. He's got to go.
Yeah, I mean, look, you make a good point about the city and what have you. It's a very interesting case actually with Slot because he's won the Premier League title. You think, well, he's going to be absolutely embraced. He's going to be kind of welcomed into the bosom of the Liverpool family, so to speak. And it's not quite been the case. And I think that's just some of that is just because of the person you follow. And I think that Jurgen Klopp leaves such a I mean, if you ask them now, Liverpool fans, that Slot leaves and Klopp comes back in, they'd be like, yeah, happy days. Because Klopp was that type of man mountain, larger than life, charisma to boot, aura like you wouldn't believe, as Wayne Rooney spoke about. And so that's not something in a sense that Arne Slot is short with. It's just not his disposition. It's not his personality. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. It's just there are some managers, whether it's a Guardiola, Mourinho in his pomp, Jurgen Klopp, maybe even Ferguson for sure in terms of historical times, that are just larger than life. They have such a command over not just the club but the city. Fans just take them into their hearts, and that will often win you a lot, won't it? You in terms of grace,
Mm.
in terms of time, in terms of patience. Jurgen Klopp also had difficult times, but the Liverpool fans stuck with him. There was never a chance that Liverpool were ever going to fire Jurgen Klopp, and I mean that in terms of ever. He's obviously seen fit to walk away because he didn't have the energy to continue, but he didn't close that door in terms of a return in that Stephen Bartlett sit down that he did. So look, I just think Slot, it's a tough time for him. PSG is going to be super difficult if they continue to play like this because PSG, for me, are one of the favourites along with Bayern. You could argue maybe Arsenal, but for me, Arsenal are third against those two teams for sure. In terms of winning the Champions League, PSG will feel really confident against this particular Liverpool team. So, yeah, look, I wouldn't be surprised if they pull the trigger. There's some talk that they have spoken to Alonso in the background. I don't know what that looks like. Let's see. Again, I think you've got to take the emotion out of it and say, is this guy the right guy to get us challenging for the title in the coming seasons? And that's where Liverpool want to be. They've won Premier Leagues in recent times. They've come incredibly close in Premier Leagues in recent times. You can't accept what's going on right now. Even if somehow he got to start next season, Ayub, he'll be on a very sticky wicket in those first 6 to 10 games. So, yeah, I personally, I think his time's perhaps coming to an end because when multiple players drop a level, Ayub, and those players have got to look at themselves, it's up to the manager to coax those performances
Mm.
out,
Yeah.
to coax those fitness levels. There's been a lot of talk about how he's very fond of PSG. He likes a slightly more Dutch style of football and all the rest of it, whereas Liverpool's more about pressing, perhaps, like you said, in line with the City in terms of we go get it, we go chase it, working hard and all the rest of it, which is what Jurgen Klopp's teams were all about. It seems Slot's getting away from that. This team looks tired. It looks old
Yeah.
in some spaces. And they don't offer angles. They don't offer enough solutions. They look very individualistic in certain attacks, which is very worrying. So yeah, they've got a whole heap to do. Just switching over to Chelsea, you've got a son obviously that supports Chelsea. They've had a difficult time of it, haven't they? They've obviously got pasted by PSG. Home and away. First game got away from them. Second game, they were never in it. They've probably
Mm.
played absolutely off the park. I think Stamford Bridge was pretty much empty by the time the full-time whistle went. First and foremost, what's Momo's reaction to all of this because can't get hold of him. And secondly, what's your thoughts in terms of how you see it for a senior who's come under the pump, hasn't he? And he's a young manager, so that's always going to come across very differently. And he's also managing Chelsea Football Club, so we know how that normally ends. How do you see it? How do you see this ending up?
I mean, it's very much Chelsea, this, isn't it, really? I mean, I did sort of have a chat with my lad on this subject because obviously he's a hardcore Chelsea supporter, and he's been to home and away games. He's been to Europe as well, so he's somebody who obviously has a great understanding of this football club. And he was very critical of the ownership. I think
Yeah,
his main ire is towards the owners. I think the owners are, are sort of making reckless decisions, and it's. I mean, there's a Chinese proverb: "The fish rots from the top." And I think sometimes if you've got ownership which is all over the place, it's eventually it's going to leak down. I'm not always somebody that subscribes to that, but obviously there's a great deal of truth in that. And I think what was alarming from what Moore said was over the last couple of weeks, he feels that there's a number of players who've down tools, which is worrying. I mean, that to me is ultimately it's when you lose the dressing room. Uh, you're on the hide into nothing, which is surprising because he started all right. I mean, I think there was some decent results, some decent performances,
yeah,
but over the last few weeks, it's fallen apart again. I mean, he's a very young manager. He's not got much experience of top flight football in England. In fact, no experience. He's obviously
yeah,
managed in the Championship. He's managed in Europe as well. So there's pedigree there. There's experience there. But Chelsea is a different animal. It's a different beast, and really, you've got to have a certain type of character. I mean, it's very in complete contrast to Liverpool. In Chelsea, you just need to be a really good coach, somebody who can manage egos. There's a high expectation. You've got owners who are a little bit sort of erratic, so therefore you need to have a different character. I just don't think Rosenior has the attributes. I mean, he seems a really affable character. He's a nice character. He seems quite bright, but I just don't think he's got the attributes. In fact, it's very difficult to identify who would have the attributes to manage this Chelsea under this ownership because they're just loose cannons. It really, I mean, it's almost as if they're ready to pull the trigger. Uh, and it's a club that has all the ingredients to be a really great club. And it should be a dominant club in English football. And the amount of money they've spent, the players that they've got as well, they've got again, it's a bit almost akin to Manchester City. There's decent quality there, but it's not just a case of getting a manager in. I think there is something else fundamentally wrong with that football club. Uh, Whether it can be addressed, I'm not too sure because I think owners these days, I mean, we've got obviously a lunatic who's owning Nottingham Forest. I hope they go down, but we'll talk about that later on. But it's football now is very different to football in the past. I mean, before sort of maybe about 10, 15 years ago, maybe slightly longer than that, you'd never really talk about owners. You'd talk about managers, you'd talk about players, but now
yeah.
very much owners are in the forefront, and all for
Yes.
the wrong reasons. And owners who are pumping money into the club, who've got egos, it's not always a great ingredient to have because, in a sense, there's a certain expectation. They have far too much influence. In a sense, if you're putting where your money where your mouth is, maybe perhaps that's one of the consequences. But I think this is a football club that needs a reboot and a reset. It's not going to happen. I mean, this is Chelsea for the last 3 or 4 years. It's a club that's it's it's sort of sailing in sort of choppy waters, and I don't think I foresee in the near future those waters are going to be any calmer. Lads, not too keen, not too happy with what's going on, but unfortunately, there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah. Yeah, I did drop him a message yesterday. I'm still waiting for a response. But it might be a while actually. But no, look, it's I said many moons ago, and I just want to clarify. I could never foresee being a Chelsea supporter. The reason for that, I was thinking, why is that? Are we seeing football differently compared to perhaps how others see it? And I think it comes down to personality, the way you view life, the way you view kind of organizations. And we've spoken about this, so you in terms of the fact that we've worked together, like what does it take for an organization to succeed and some of the pitfalls of that and all the rest of it. And there are some commonalities across all organizations, small, medium, and large. And Chelsea just don't seem listen, they've been a top tier outfit. They've won Champions Leagues. They've won more stuff than my club has in the last 15, 20, 20, 30 years, whatever it's been. And I commend them. There's a different way, clearly. It's just about a personal preference to support that type of outfit. I just couldn't because it doesn't doesn't feel stable. It doesn't feel like there's often a plan. It often feels very kind of haphazard, and I just don't know if that's the kind of stability from a fandom that I would want particularly. But anyway, that's just a very subjective assessment. Listen, I like Rosenior. He's keen on communicating, maybe a bit like Amorim to some extent. He's keen on sharing his thoughts. He obviously took a lot of ridicule about this respecting the ball. You saw the images with Paul Tierney, I think it was, with inside of the huddle as Chelsea was surrounding the ball in the halfway line, which when you're losing games, you will become a little bit of a point of ridicule, won't it? The talk shows will go to town on it. The sports shows, sports debate shows will go to town on it. But if you boil it down, like you said, football's about results. And right now, he's not getting enough of them. That squad, I think, has talent, but it's not balanced in terms of age profile, in terms of mentality, crucially, experience. You look at some of the player profiles. You saw what Enzo did with the goalkeeper in the first leg. In terms of throwing the ball at him, a bit of petulance. It doesn't feel a collected unit. I'm okay with a bit of frustration, but it's rare that you target that in such a direct way to one of your teammates in such an kind of illustrative way. So I think I was a bit disappointed in that. I think most Chelsea fans would have been. He made some comments apparently after the game or the second leg. Not sure if he's going to be here next season. So it doesn't quite feel as stable. And I think for a young manager to deal with that, it's very difficult. So I think, look, I said when he came in to your son, and not in a dismissive kind of way. I said, look, he's not going to succeed because it's Chelsea. It's just that we've seen the movie before. You'll lose some games. The fans will get vocal. They'll get especially vocal given he's got very little to no experience, which means he's going to have very little grace to begin with, and in which case the Chelsea hierarchy will move on because that's what they do. So given all of those weighted factors, he's going to lose his job sooner rather than later. And I think that will perhaps prove itself either over the coming weeks, maybe perhaps in the summer. The big prize, Ayub, at the end of this difficult times, I would argue even for Liverpool, Ayub, is the spectre, if you ask me, of Luis Enrique. Kind of at PSG. The talk is that obviously he's won a Champions League. He obviously wins the French League. He's won the Champions League with Barcelona as well. So he's now won the Champions League with two different football clubs. They look primed to go again. You'd expect them to get through Liverpool. Then it's looking like it's going to be a massive semi-final, perhaps against Bayern, but Real Madrid will have something to say about that as well. And then they'll obviously be playing a tough opponent in the final. So they've got a long way to go. But if they were to win the Champions League again at Europe, he might see that as the perfect time to say, you know what, I'd like a different challenge. Now, Chelsea have approached him previously. He said no, by all intents and purposes. I think Liverpool 100% would move on from Slot if they could get Luis Enrique. I think that's without a shadow of a doubt. I think any football club would be happy to have him. He seems a more perfect fit in some ways for Liverpool because of just what Barcelona in a sense stands for. Liverpool, what it stands for, like you wonderfully articulated. I think Enrique likes the idea of perhaps going to that type of football club and bringing them back to the big time. I think that would be something that all Liverpool fans would get behind as well, because he has a certain style, he has a certain pull, he has a certain charisma, he has his own tragic story, obviously with the loss of his daughter and what have you. It's a club that understands what kind of heartache looks like in that particular space as well of losing loved ones. I just think there's a marriage there that feels very kind of natural to some extent. I think he's a wonderful manager. Anytime a team, and PSG was not the easy option that it looks like. They tried to win the Champions League for many a year, but he nailed it through playing very, very attractive football. So I think if you can tick both those boxes, winning and playing attractive football, I mean, that's music to any team's ears. I think he's the one that these teams would absolutely look at and say, can we coax him out of PSG? That's what Chelsea will look at. Other than that, are there other managers? Rory Jennings seems to believe, yes, there's a lot of managers. There will be. There'll always be someone willing to take the Chelsea gig because it's an incredible payoff, first and foremost, which is not the right way to go into any job, but it is what it is. I mean, that's the fact of it. I just think it needs a manager who's going to come in and wrestle some of that control away back from the leadership. Now, the leadership will then they have to be strong enough to appoint somebody who's going to have some checks and balances, in terms of, fighting for the squad. It's up to the leadership to then stay strong and say yes to some things, no to some things. But it needs, I think, a strong coach to wrestle control away from the players, away from the senior management, and take this club forward. Because, like you said, there's talent there. I question the mentality within that squad in terms of handling the biggest moments, the most difficult moments to come through as a collective. For me, if anything, the squad's perhaps a bit too big. You never know who's playing at centre back. You never know who might be playing in central midfield or what have you. So, look, tough times for Chelsea, tough times for Liverpool. Both managers for me under the pump in two very different circumstances. The Slot being a Premier League champion, Rosenior being his first gig in English football. So yeah, I would be surprised. I think one of them for sure will lose their jobs in the summer. Probably Rosenior ahead of Slot in that respect, just because of the employers that he has. But I think there's grounds perhaps for both managers to lose their jobs right now, and that's a bit sad actually in both cases.
Okay, well that's two clubs with, I suppose, with sort of first world problems. Teams with real problems.
Real problems are you? Yes, real problems
with real problems at the bottom.
let me set you up. Let me set you up. Because I want to get your thoughts. I mean, Leeds Brentford yesterday. I mean, goodness gracious me. Where do I start?
You're not getting that time back, are you?
Those are 2 hours of your life that you're never getting back. I mean, I will say this just very quickly. It was at midnight our time over here. I was feeling for you because the more the game went on, I thought this has got Sunderland written all over it. I really did. I was really pulling for you in terms of I hope this is not going to be the case on the basis that I wanted to shoot this podcast. Otherwise, you might have cancelled. But no, I mean, I just thought, and they had a free kick in the dying embers, and I thought, goodness gracious, Ayoub's heart's going probably 180 beats or whatever it is. I mean, firstly, to talk about the game for a minute, no more. And secondly, just in terms of where it leaves Leeds, I mean, they've not scored now. I think close to 7 hours of football in the league or something along those lines as well. That's got to be a huge concern for you, surely.
Yeah. We're in massive, massive trouble. I mean, first of the game, I won't even give it a minute. I'll give it 30 seconds. An absolute shocker. And again, it's. I mean, I've given praise to Falk, but I'm going to criticise the man, especially over the last few weeks, where it's just been absolutely shocking. I mean, the starting lineup was all right. He played with two up top, which we're always as fans crying out for, especially at home. But it's just it just looked mediocre. I mean, DCL he's been picked in a 163-man squad by Tuchel. I mean, it's absolutely farcical. I mean, he's out of form. I mean, when he was in form, he couldn't get a sort of look in. Now he's out of form. He's got into the squad. Poor, very, very poor. It's a team that really, I mean, if you can't score, you can sort of turn around and sort of say we're still fighting. I mean, I'll give him that. It's a squad that it's giving it everything, but it's bereft of quality. And really, that in the Premier League, you can't afford to have no quality. And I've always sort of said as well that there are teams around the bottom where they've got maybe one or two sort of sparks. We just don't have any sparks at all. And therein lies the problem. That's the reason why I think we're hot favourites to go down. I seriously do. We've not scored in 4 league games. You're not going to stay up. You're not going to stay up because we still got frailties. We're still likely to concede a goal. In saying that, we've not conceded in the last 2 games. But that Sunderland result will haunt me. And I put out a tweet sort of saying that is a game that we'll look back on in the summer whilst we contemplate life in the Championship. Which is why I'm watching that. Well, I'm watching that. That's why that's on there. Right. So certainly from a Leeds perspective, really, really bad. But I'll talk about other games as well, and I'll let you talk about that as well. But at least we've Aston Villa against West Ham. Aston Villa at home, but it's a team that's out of form. And then you've got the massive, massive game between Spurs and Forest. So at least we've got that somebody is going to either drop points. Ideally, what I'd like is, I mean, if I could sort of have 2 wishes, it would be Aston Villa winning and Forest and Spurs drawing. That would be a perfect sort of maybe it would sort of alleviate the pain of that Leeds result. But you're right. I mean, in the end, I was actually sort of more fearing that we might end up with nothing. So we got a point. And that free kick right at the end. I mean, that was just it's it's one of those Leeds. Don't do this to me. Don't do this to me. So
Yeah.
it's very bad. I'm a few weeks ago. I was slightly optimistic. I think these last sort of 3 or 4 weeks has told me that uh, it was we it was a false dawn. Falk is incompetent. We have got mediocre players, and the combination of that is relegation.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think if out of the four clubs, Leeds, Spurs, Forest, and West Ham, in terms of current form, the fact is that Leeds are the best placed in terms of needing a points buffer, which is what they've got. Because if it was the other way around and they were, let's say, third to bottom with this current form where they've hit a block, let's be honest, in terms of
Mm.
scoring goals, creating clear-cut opportunities, you'd think, I think most people will be saying, yeah, they've not got enough goals in them. The fact that they've got a few extra points from West Ham just makes you think, well, that means West Ham still have to get those points somewhere.
Mm.
And obviously, they got a point at City, much to your disappointment. Obviously, they were missing some of it. So you must have been thinking, right, come on, City will probably
Yeah.
beat West Ham. Um, but West Ham looked decent in that game from a defensive point of view. Nuno changed his tactics. They'll obviously get Somerville back at some point. I don't know if he's playing today. I imagine perhaps he is. I'm not checked. But you've then got a huge game between Spurs and Forest. But look at Spurs in there, and I say current form. I mean, they put up a good showing at Anfield. Okay, Liverpool are not what Liverpool were, but give Spurs credit because even my side, and I have to apologise to Spurs fans, even I said there's no way they're going to win at Anfield,
Mm.
or they're for sure going to lose. And listen, at the end, they dug in and had some great moments. I thought, in a sense, and I would have begrudged them too much in terms of getting that equaliser right in the dying, and that shows a bit of character. They then won against Atletico Madrid. Are you at home? I believe they won the game in the end. So yeah, I mean, look, it just shows something. Now, listen, they've got to still show that, and at home they've been shocking in the league. Let's be honest, for the best part of a couple of years. So today's a game feels huge. I think Spurs have to win. I think they have to win. If they were to lose, I think that could be. Yeah, could be good night Vienna in terms of ego shooter, in terms of where he's at with
Mm.
Spurs. It's a huge game, arguably their biggest. I think it's their biggest game of the season. I could argue it could be the biggest that they've got in their recent history, even ahead of the Europa League. It feels massive in
Mm.
terms of home. They'll need the crowd with them. Leeds, so yeah, the goals. I mean, where the goals? You just wonder because, like to your point, they've got a relatively small squad, and now playing the final stretch of games, where you wear that accumulation, the squad lack of squad rotation, which you obviously quite vocal about, especially in those games between, let's say, game week 15 to game week 25, where you were, really pressing home the need for changes, early substitutions. I remember
Mm.
you were constantly talking about that, which is fair enough. It just feels as perhaps the additional mileage in some of those legs is now costing them because they can't now get across the line, especially in terms of creativity. They look really poor from a creative perspective. They're going to need one of these games for a bit of luck. The other team going down to 10 men, a penalty, something, some sort of good luck
Mm.
just to get across the line because I still believe they're perhaps a win short of just feeling a little bit like confident. They probably just a win away and what have you. West Ham, obviously, away to Villa. I don't know. Maybe could they get something? Perhaps. I mean, if West Ham win, you'll be absolutely crying in your evening tea, I'm sure. But yeah, look, listen, I think it's a huge night. It's a huge game. Spurs, Forest, West Ham, Leeds, like you said, just struggling at the moment as well in terms of goals. I don't think this is sustainable. There's just too many games left for them to just eke out a point. And it is a point. Listen, I think it's good enough, but they'll be on the wrong end of some of these games if they can't
Mm.
score that they can score some goals. I would argue their fixtures at the back end of the season are still okay, but you can imagine the psychological pressure of some of those games. I mean, massive. I mean, at least I talk about game week 38. I mean, I can't imagine what you'll be doing. I think they play West Ham at the very end or what have you. So,
you,
yeah, listen.
you know how it's set up. You know how that is going to be
Yeah.
set up. It's winner
Uh,
takes all. I mean, that
we,
would be just. Oh no, I can't even. I can't even. Yeah, I don't even go there.
it's winner takes all, but it'd be quite consistent, I think, with your lead supporting life. Unfortunately, that it should be that way. I mean, I know you're quite negative, but do you at least agree with me that just having those few extra points just gives them enough? If they can galvanize the troops to give us one good performance, two more good performances from somewhere, this team can still stay up.
Well, I mean, you say that, I mean, and yes, I mean there is a small buffer, but if West Ham win today. I mean, as I said, the saving grace is that you've got two teams at the bottom playing each other. So at least I know that there is still going to be a slight gap, irrespective of where the results go. But the problem is that we've not scored in sort of four league games. We've not looked like scoring. I mean, we've had a goal chalked off. So I mean, we've had a penalty miss. So and these are the reasons why I actually feel we're doomed. And we've had awful officiating as well. But I'm not even going to go there because I always sort of said that you can only control the controllables. And when we've had the opportunities, we've absolutely sort of spurned those opportunities. I don't know. I mean, I'm really, really sort of fearing the worst at this moment in time because I just sort of think we've just not got the quality when it matters. We've not got the mindset. I mean, the attitude application is there, but
Yeah.
in the Premier League, that's a given. That's, as Roy Keane would say, that's your job. I mean, you've got to give in the effort, but if you don't have the quality in key moments, it's going to catch up with you, and it's caught up with us. And also, just before you sort of
Yeah.
add a point onto that, there was a stat yesterday that they showed about Liverpool, but obviously on top of that, it was Leeds. It was goals conceded after 90 minutes. Liverpool have conceded 8. We're top of the table with 9. That shows the reason why perhaps we're in this dire strait. The mentality, if we had a slightly stronger mentality, then maybe those 9 late concessions would have given us maybe extra 4 or 5 points. Would be safe.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, those kind of so that own goal away at Fulham springs to mind, and a few others, and what have you. There's some huge games coming up for Leeds. They've got the fixtures. I mean, from a fixtures point of view, they have the fixtures. They're playing teams around them. Yes, they're not scoring, so that's always going to be difficult to win games of football, are you?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
But
yeah, yeah, yeah.
home to Wolves, home to Burnley. Yes, Wolves. I watched Burnley Fulham actually yesterday, and Burnley competed. To be fair to them, I think they're another team that just doesn't have the talent. I mean, they've got enough about them. Scott Parker gets them, but they miss a bit of organisation. What have you? But you've got home to Wolves, who look okay, to be honest with you,
Mm,
although they're going down, and home to Burnley. So you've got the fixtures. Yes, you finish off away to West Ham. From your perspective, you'll be hoping you're going to get 6 out of 6. I mean, those are 2 games. 6 out of 6 have to get 2 wins there. If you get those 2 wins, Ayub, I think you're nearly there. I think you're absolutely nearly there. So that'll be very interesting. A funny little story. Obviously, last week you played Palace. Much to your disappointment, you had the penalty miss, and I sent you a penalty video, didn't I? You from midweek
yeah,
because I
yeah,
went to
yeah,
watch.
yeah.
I
It's
went to
fitting
watch a
image.
low image. I went to watch. I went to watch a local game, Elaine against Wahda, and a few notable players playing. Yep,
Yeah,
Benteke
yeah.
plays up front for Wahda, as does Dusan Tadic, who's graced the Champions League and what have you as part of that Ajax team. That lost to Spurs in that Champions League semi-finals, but. Yeah, the player for Elaine missed the penalty. Exactly, carbon
Yeah,
copy of
yeah.
DCL, and you were the first person I thought about and sent you a video of the missed penalty. But yeah, those are big moments. So you've been Leeds this season. I would say one thing. You say attitude and application is your job, and you're right. That's fair. I still commend the Leeds players of just simply not throwing the towel in. Even
Mm,
yesterday, they've understood that if you can't win the game, don't lose the game, and I think there is value to that. I think there's a certain switch mentally that you have to do. Say we've not got it. We're clearly struggling in terms of attacking potency. In the bygone years of Leeds, Ayub, that would have led to mental
mm,
collapse, knowing that, listen, we've got to chase it, we've got to try and make this score. Before you know it, you're getting caught 4-on-2, 3-on-3, whatever it may be. This Leeds team, yes, they've not got the talent. And I think there's a responsibility everywhere, you. But to your honest assessment, you've said they're giving you everything that they've got, to be honest with you. So that lies, if you ask me, elsewhere upstairs in terms of
yeah.
making sure that this squad is replenished with the talent. In terms of what those players have in their toolbox, they are giving everything, and I do appreciate again the switch, that mentality of knowing today is going to be a tough day because we're going through a difficult period in terms of not being able to score goals. We're going to stay in games. And if it's nil-nil, it's nil-nil. It's another point. And who knows, these other teams have to show that they can make up these 3-point gaps, 4-point gaps, whatever it may be. So yes, you're struggling, but I think there is some value to the fact that the team's really digging in and fighting and scrapping with everything that they at least have from a talent perspective to stay in this league. And I think that is to be commended, especially when you compare them with other Leeds teams of bygone years. I'll give you the last comment, Ayub. I think you've already said it, but I think it's heart over head. Uh, So you're definitely thinking Leeds are going down.
Yeah, yeah, and the only I suppose sort of bright spot will be is that it wasn't for the one to try. And I think that's the thing you say as fans, you can at least appreciate the fact that the team gave it everything. But the problem will be a coach and owners who just did not invest. Because ultimately they just did not understand that this league, if you don't have quality, as I always said, I mean, there's templates that have been set previously about staying in the league, and one of the key templates is that you've at least got to have one or two superstars if you can, because they will turn those 0-0 into a 1-0. If you're losing 1-0, they'll pull a goal back. So these are absolutely critical sort of additions that you need to make the squad. The owners never did that. Fox coaching as well. It leaves a lot to be desired. As I said, he's got the players absolutely giving it everything, but to stay in the Premier League, that's the basic sort of requirement. You need a little bit more. You need a coach to be dynamic. You need a coach to make changes at the right time. He's not done that, so that'll be the frustration. And it's been a tough season. This is the life of a Leeds United supporter. So on that depressing note again. At least
it's always a depressing note with you.
yeah. It's certainly with Leeds, but at least in the Championship, I mean, I'm sort of almost like thinking now, right, in terms of who's coming up. So I'm almost earmarking right teams that I want to come up. I want Wrexham in one sense to come up as well, because I've just got a feeling that they probably might be even stronger next season in the Championship. So I want it to be the weakest Championship. So that's the mindset that I've got at this moment, and it's frustrating because it was set beautifully for us this season with the teams that have come up to be the dominant teams of the three teams that came up, but it's not been the case. We've just not done our jobs, or the owners have not done their job. But it is what it is. It is what it is. It's a great sport, but sort of circumstances are based on decisions that are made, and unfortunately, the decisions weren't the right ones. So, on that note, as always, a pleasure. Enjoy the rest of the Sunday and enjoy the game. Hope it's a decent game. I'm not going to sort of say I hope you get an Arsenal win, because obviously I want a Man City win, but I hope it's a cracking game. So enjoy the afternoon, and to the viewers, enjoy the Sunday. Enjoy the rest of the week. We'll see you soon. Take care of yourself. Ta-ra for now.